we're going on a little bit of a break here as a staff. I do give the guys some time off once in a while, but I'm going to stay busy. If you guys want to get together and talk anything specific, we'd be happy to do that. And then I'd also like to give a little bit of a plug for our New England Offensive Line Clinic, which is coming up, scheduled to happen, I believe, the 7th of June. And the keynote speaker for that is Dante Scarnecchia, and he'll be on campus at UNE on the 7th, and along with a really strong group of offensive line coaches who, they'll be our second year doing it, and we're capped at 50 people. So if you guys are interested, please let us know and sign up soon so we can make sure you get your spot. And should be a good day, and nice to just get back to football and be on campus, to be honest with you. So that's it for me. Look forward to hearing from any of you guys. Reach out with anything you may need. My cell, my email, Twitter, whatever it takes. But we're here for you guys as much as we can be. Turn it over to Coach Hall if he has anything to add.
Yeah, man. This is a tenuous moment. The football season. I can never recall it being a time that it was in question. And being that that's the case, I don't know what we're doing, and we have a few phases to acclimate back into school. It was interesting to hear Darren give a pretty detailed idea on how we're going to go back to football from you guys' standpoint. On our end, we haven't quite gotten that far yet because of the implications of the kids who are coming from everywhere. But if for some reason that we do not go and you guys do, by all means, I want our space to be available to you guys much more than what it is. And I've had some conversations with Mike, Coach Goff, and some other guys about that. But be that as it may, if for some reason we don't go and you guys do, reach out to me if it becomes a field space issue or just needing space to practice. Because if we don't go, none of our fall athletics will go, most likely. And so that could potentially open up field space. But all in all, man, I'm glad to see everybody. And like Mike, I do clinics, but it's at 6 a.m. because my kids are off the chain at 7. So I don't advertise that much because I don't want guys to think I'm grinding it like that. So, but all in all, guys, stay safe, keep washing your hands, and no touching.
All right, thanks, Coach. I guess at this point we'll jump into this thing. If you guys who are not on the panel can turn your cameras off and keep your mics muted, we'll certainly have a chance at the end to come on and get some questions in or just get some more chat in. But definitely excited to have these guys on tonight to talk some football. Try to get a good array of head coaches from Class A all the way down to Class D. Guys who are doing it with different size rosters at different levels in different parts of the state. Anxious to hear what some guys have to say. We came up with a great list of questions. I'm going to kind of bounce around on this thing and just ask different guys different questions. But if you feel like you got a point that you really want to make on a question that's not yours, hop in. But I think it'll give us more flow if we just kind of go around and kind of take them that way, and instead of all kind of rehashing a lot of the same stuff, we'll go right around. So quick introduction, fellas, if you can. Start with you, Coach Soren.
Yeah, Mark Soren, the head coach at Oxford Hills. Grew up in Fargo, North Dakota with North Dakota State. Played football at University of South Dakota. Coached, I guess my first job was in Fargo there in '93, and then was coached in New York State and Minnesota and New Hampshire, and then I came over to Poland and worked under Rick Kramer in 2002, I think it was head coach there for about 3 years, and then came to Oxford Hills, was an assistant for a year, and I think it's been 8 years now I've been the head coach at Oxford Hills.
Awesome.
Oh, we want influences, right?
Yeah, if you want to go quick, we got a lot of guys. So, but yeah,
Yeah,
go
that's
ahead.
good. I mean, I just say most of the influence I had, of course, a high school coach, but really it's been from Maine coaches. I mean, of course, my head coaching has all been here. It's just been learning and really losing to a lot of Maine coaches and getting better that way.
Yeah, you guys know me. Mike Hathaway, Levitt High School. I've been there since '02. You guys see me every day, so I'll move it right on to Danny White.
All right, Danny White, head football coach at Foxcroft Academy. Been in this position since 2009. So, I mean, my greatest football influence is Gary Worthing, who is currently still our assistant coach. So pretty fortunate in that way. So, yeah, that's me.
Cool.
Yeah, Captain Cooper. I'm the head football coach at Bonneville High School. Just finished my 22nd year. Grew up in Fairfield, Maine. Played for my dad at Lawrence. So that's my greatest influence, without a doubt. Still the greatest football coach that I've ever been associated with. Came to Bonneville at 98 after 6 years working at the University of Maine. So I had a very great opportunity to work for Coach Cos and Coach Ferentz too. So I've been fortunate to be around some pretty good football guys.
You're like the Charles Nelson Riley of these Zoom clinics. You got your own square, like the old Hollywood squares all the time, man.
That's awesome.
Coach Filio, you're next.
Yeah, Aaron Filio, head football coach at South Portland. Played at South Portland. Born, bred, and raised there. And then went to Plymouth State College, and then was fortunate enough to, coach for my football coach at high school, John Wolfgram. Got a job immediately and was there for 6 years as an assistant before starting the Cape football program, and was there for 15 years before coming full circle back home to South Portland this past fall for the first time. And obviously, John Wolfgram is pretty much my biggest influence, as well as Jack Flynn, who was the athletic director when I played there. But I would be remiss if I didn't say that, my time in Class C and Class B at Cape, the colleagues and the friends that I made, Coach Aylward, Coach Roach, Coach Turner, Hath, you guys, I mean, I think the state of Maine has so many great coaches. And coming from Class A SMAA, which is all I knew, I was opened to a whole new world of really talented and dedicated guys. And so I look to you guys too as being positive influences for me personally. So
Awesome, Coach. Well said. Coach Turner.
David Turner, Freiburg Academy. My 13th year as a head coach. I went to Freiburg Academy and then spent a year at New Hampton School, prepped there, a year at University of Maine, and then finished my playing career at Plymouth State. Started my coaching career at Bowdoin College with Coach Vandersea and McCabe and Coach Flynn and Coach Soul. Great experience that was. And then moved on to Freiburg Academy, was an assistant for 12 years, and then became the head football coach. And several influences, I'll only name a couple. My father was my football coach in high school, smart guy, physics major, Mike, like that. Innovative, and kind of taught me that it wasn't about me and that football was about education. And the great Fuzzy Thurston, which all you guys know, he basically taught me that you want to be a good coach, you have to make connections with kids and make them know that you care. And great coach, great man.
Coach O'Connell.
Hi, guys. Thanks for coming on tonight. Thanks for having me be a part of this. I am the head football coach at John Babs. I've been there for 18 years now. Sounds weird to say that. My biggest influence first and foremost, my first coach was my father, who's been taking me to games since I was old enough to walk. But in terms of football, certainly my high school coach, Gabby Price, had a profound effect on me. Certainly my college offensive line coach for 2 years as a Bobcat at Bates, Coach Capone, also had a huge influence on me. But I'd like to echo what Coach Filio said. I've had the fortunate luck to be part of the Lobster Bowl for the last 14 years and really been able to make some great relationships with a lot of coaches all over the state through that entity, and now through the Coaches Association as the liaison for the last 6 years. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Coach Haley, who got me into all of this Coaches Association stuff. But like I said, I'd like to reiterate what Coach Filio said. The group that we have in Maine is pretty special. And the way we've come together through all this with Coach Capone's help, Coach Hathaway's help, and so many others that lead the way through our executive committee and through all the work that you guys do with our sport in this state. I'm influenced by all of you all the time, so I appreciate it. And it means a lot to me, and it's very humbling to be here.
Coach Bertrand?
Yeah, Tom Bertrand, the head football coach at MCI. Been here since 2002. Started out up at Stearns as an assistant coach in '95 under Art Greenlaw. Certainly would count him as one of my biggest football influences for sure. Kind of taught me the way that you coach high school football, and a lot of the things we do now are steeped in that. I was there for a few years as an assistant coach, took over in '98 as the head coach for a few years. Transitioned to Winslow for a year in 2001. Great season down there, where I'll talk about my second football influence, being Jimmy Poulin. He taught me how you treat people. It doesn't matter whether they're kids or they're coaches or who they are. I learned a lot from him, and I think of him fondly. Then came here in 2002, and have been doing this since. I'd say my dad would be a football influence for me. He's been part of our booster group since I was playing, and has maintained. He's shown me what it means to bring a community into your football program. And then, I could name lots of assistant coaches that I've coached with, because it's something that's pretty special to me to have the tenure that I've had and the different guys that have gone through. But it's a special fraternity to be with you guys, and thanks a lot for having me on tonight.
Awesome. Coach Alasso?
Hey, great to be in Maine. My name's Steve Alasso. I've been all over the place. I grew up in Boston. I played football at Valparaiso. I heard someone say Fuzzy Thurston. I don't know if we're talking about the same Fuzzy Thurston, the left guard for Green Bay, but he was a Valparaiso alumni. And I've been in Illinois, Nebraska, Missouri. From 99 to 2008, I was a head coach for Cox High School in Virginia Beach, Virginia. My kids all played sports up here. My son played ball at Holy Cross. My daughter football at Holy Cross. My daughter field hockey BU. So I took a job up in Massachusetts, and I was at Minnetonka Regional High School for the last 12 years. And Biddeford opened up. My wife and I felt, was an Indiana girl. We fell in love with Maine, and when we saw it opening, we grabbed it. So I started, I guess, during COVID-19. So it's been a kind of an interesting transition. My influence is not a football coach. It's a woman named Nancy Folks, who's the high school field hockey coach at Cox High School, and in 30 years lost less than 30 games and won 14 state championships. Her team was on the cover of Cheerios, and she was the most amazing human being I've ever met. At a pretty young age, she retired from field hockey, and I begged her to join us in football, and she did. And she just retired down there a year ago. So she was assistant football coach for 20 years, head field hockey coach for 30 years. And she was really amazing. And I learned so much about coaching, so much about everything there is to be a football coach from her. I learned a lot from a lot of coaches, but she was probably the most impressive in my mind. And again, I just want to thank everyone for allowing me to be here today. I'm listening to your resumes. I'm so impressed with Maine football, impressed with the state. I feel very blessed to be here.
Awesome, Coach. Coach Cates?
Coach Chris Cates, Lisbon High School. This will be my 12th season on staff. I'll be my 4th as the head coach. Prior to that, played at Lisbon High School when I was in school, and then played 4 years up at Maine Maritime. Biggest influences, obviously Coach Moynihan. Spent 4 years playing for him, and a bunch of years on his staff. So learned a lot from him, and and then the law school the past couple of years. I mean, spent a lot of time with a lot of great coaches up there, and good experience, and take away something every single year from those coaches up there. So a little bummed that this might be kind of stopping it for this year, but hopefully we can pick it back up next year.
Awesome. Well, I'll get right into it, fellas. I'm going to go to Danny O'Connell first. This was a question from Coach Alasso. What is one thing that we can do as a coaches association to enhance the sport of football in the state, and what should we be pushing for because it's the right thing for Maine high school football?
Well, first, I'm hopeful that we're doing it. I think there's a lot of coaches on this chat tonight that are involved with the executive committee of our Coaches Association, and many more on the call that have been around the association for the years that I've been involved, and then the years I've been a coach. Hopefully we're doing those things as we speak. It feels to me in this time of pandemic that the communication has been much better, that we've made our entity more viable by those communications. Certainly clinics like this and the profound speakers we've had over the last month and a half have been fantastic. Different platforms, both live and on YouTube. Certainly Coach Capone, Coach Hathaway, and many others have put so much time into doing that. And we're continuing to build that relationship. We've got a pretty good fraternity of coaches here that I feel like was somewhat limited for a long time, because if you happen to be in the circle, you were kind of in the know. And we really wanted to, over the last couple of years, expand that fraternity towards including everybody. If you're a young coach in Millinocket, Maine, or you're someone from all over the country who just started in Biddeford, we want everyone in between to be connected to what we're doing. And hopefully, as much as this pandemic sucks, I think this has really served to help us get united. Certainly the video platform has helped, but I'm hopeful that as we move through this pandemic and back to regular football, that the Coaches Association can continue to strive to keep us all connected, give us all an opportunity to continue to learn the game and really be a collective unit so we can stick together and protect and help and promote our great game. So hopefully we're doing those things. And if you guys have any ideas on how we can help those things from other entities you've been a part of, put it on us. Let us know. We want to do everything we can to help this fraternity grow and continue to thrive.
Yeah, and I would just follow up, Dan, with that. I think one of the best things that we've done, recently within the last year here is the formation of the executive board in our Coaches Association, which really didn't exist before. There certainly wasn't the level of communication that takes place now. We've got representation from all over the state at all levels. And I think moving to this, dues kind of model where, you're not just getting that clinic in Portland, but you're going to, we're going to, not obviously in the same quantity, but we're going to maintain online clinics next year to get people coached up. We're looking to do some things in terms of recognizing players, recognizing coaches that I think is good. And I think we're starting to, really focus on, what can we do to get into youth football a little bit more around the state and leave a little bit more of an imprint there, and kind of get things, below us moving in the right direction. I feel like we're pulling in the right direction at the high school level right now, and things are kind of shaping up that way. And I think that the next step is, how can we get down to the middle schools and get down to the youth programs and get those guys on board with what we're doing, and then coordinate that, that effort as a whole. So I don't know if anybody else wants to chime in there before we move to the next question. If anybody has a point they want to make. All right, we'll go to the next one. Going to go to Aaron for this one. I think you got some good background for this question because you've been at Cape and now at South Portland. But what is the policy at your school or in your district for booster group? And then kind of just what does that, what does that situation look like? Maybe you can talk about some differences between Cape and South Portland.
Yeah, no problem. So I was actually just going to chime in on what Dan said real quick. So I think the next phase, because I think obviously we're heading in the right direction. But I think the next phase, and this was starting to, you could see it in the clinic that we were gonna have in Portland, is to really try to focus on youth coaches and youth coaches development. And I think that that's definitely going to have to be something that, we kind of square away and figure out how we want to do it. But I think that that's going to be crucial as we try to, accomplish the goals that you guys have already set. So for boosters, in Cape, I had to create the booster organization, from scratch. And so, I always say that, our success at Cape was only contingent on, the success and the competency and the work ethic of the booster organization that we were able to put together in Cape. And it was a work in progress. We were fortunate in Cape that we had, really good people in charge and running the show. And that partly came because they had to kind of grow and build the program from the ground up. And so I had a pretty heavy hand in working with them early on. But as I continued through the years, that faded away and they were pretty autonomous. In Cape, the boosters funded 95% of the football program, and we were running on a budget of like $60,000 a year. At South Portland, the booster organization when I came on last year, it was about 4 members of the booster organization. So I kind of used the blueprint that we had in Cape and really kind of put it on those families to organize it. And they did have some bylaws and stuff like that. And so I'm just a big believer in having a strong booster organization. We just had, a meeting last night via Zoom, and we meet monthly. I try to get to all the meetings as much as possible. But we have an executive board, and like you guys are talking about, like our coaches association. One of the big changes was putting together the executive board. I mean, I think that gives it structure and organization. So you can kind of delegate and have different people accomplish different goals that you set out as a head football coach. I don't know, and I'm curious about how much influence other head coaches have in their booster organization. Just because I've always wondered, because I've always kind of come in to both in Cape and South Portland, kind of like, full charge and basically kind of, a little Napoleon and kind of dictating what I wanted, and I've been fortunate that people have worked with me on that. So I am curious about, how, and I guess I'm going to throw it back to anybody else, because I think it's important that other coaches hear what other experiences are. I mean, for me, I'm pretty much involved in sort of not only the day to day, but also building it and sort of organizing it. I know that some schools have a one booster program, which South Portland, will never go to. Nobody's in favor of that. So that's a positive, I think. But I am kind of curious about the other roles that coaches have. I know that we don't have time to ask everybody, but does anybody have like a unique or different experience than what I've had, I guess?
Anybody want to take that one?
I only ask because I really believe it's vital. I think it's critical. That relationship is critical for fundraising, for for PR, just for your brand, really, to promote your program. So,
Mark Thorin, you've kind of walked into a bigger school there. What's it like over there at Oxford Hills?
So our booster program is really just the youth program. And the money they raise just does K through 6. And so the booster program there, it's sort of, our football booster program is run through the booster program, but I have a director that I don't really hire, but the people that are directing it, I trust and have a relationship with, and they fundraise for them. And so the football program, football youth booster program has a budget in the overall booster program that really does not go to any of the high school programs. We could ask them for it, but typically we don't do that anymore. So I'm kind of in charge of fundraising for a football program, and we have a football account. But the booster program is different. Now, I do have my hands on with. I mean, he runs it, and then we talk about rules. So if we got rid of the kickoff a few years ago, that was something they came to me about. And we'll do a coaching clinic for them. But the money that is our concessions goes to the booster program at the school, which goes to every youth organization that booster program runs.
Coop, how about you? Were you going to chime in there?
Yeah, just going to say that, much like Aaron, I am very involved with our boosters at Bonnie Eagle. Bonnie Eagle football was started in 1991, and it was not school funded, and that is still the case. So the only thing our district gives us is they pay for 5 coaching stipends and 12 footballs. All helmets, shoulder pads, anything else we need is paid for through our booster program. So I'm very much involved, and our boosters basically oversee football from whatever age starts. So we usually allow kids, first grade to start with our flag, all the way up to 12th grade. So our boosters have to do a lot. They have to oversee a lot. It's very important for our entire program and the health of our program that our booster club functions in an orderly, organized fashion. And so I got to be involved. And much like Aaron, we meet once a month. I'm there at all meetings unless I've got a family commitment that pulls me out of it. So and I'm very lucky that we have some hugely dedicated people, and you got to, as the head coach, you got to go find those dedicated people repeatedly, because they're only going to be in your boosters for a set amount of years, because their child is going to graduate and that's going to be it. So you got to keep working hard to find the dedicated parents that are going to organize and run your booster club, and make sure that we can do the fundraising necessary to support football in our district from 2nd grade to 12th grade.
Yeah, I think that's been a big key for us, is finding those people to do that. We used to have, kind of like Mark, a football account within the school, and I was in charge of that account. And then our school made a push to take all those accounts out of the school. And ironically now they think they might want to make a push to bring them back in and potentially do one booster group, but that got shot down pretty good. I don't know how you send them all out and then ask for them all back. To me, that doesn't make a lot of sense. But we have our own account outside of the school. Has nothing to do with them. We get a decent budget from the school in terms of money, but we certainly raise more with our booster group than we get from the school by a long shot. And I always try to find parents who have more than one boy who plays football. Like Cole Moran's mother, she's roped in forever because he just graduated, but his second brother is going to be a 10th grader, and the youngest brother is about to be a 6th grader. So we're going to have a good run there like that. But I think you got to choose some parents who, in my opinion, they're going to be focused on the money, and they're going to let you make a lot of the decisions. And
Mike,
yeah.
Steve Lasso, I would add what I've done that worked really successfully in Virginia and Massachusetts up to really about 3 years ago, is I always went to a parent or parents, mom and dad, who had a son who just graduated, who I had a relationship with. The parents, for whatever reason, thought extremely highly of me, and I would ask them to commit 2 to 3 years to do the booster club. And then I would say, then you got to find a replacement of a graduating senior parent. And that worked my whole time in Virginia Beach, which was really so fluid and seamless. And I've never had, politics were never involved. Parents didn't get jealous. There was no obligation. And that worked all up until Minichog, up until, season 2017. But I was fortunate enough to have a parent that was really good. But I think if you think about as coaches, there's a lot of seniors that graduated that parents just feel so appreciative to you, and you might want to call them to duty, and you'd be surprised how many people will step up. And I had a parent that kept stats for me the entire 12 years I was in Minichog, and his son was a senior. And that's away games, home games. His son was a senior 1 year. my first year there in 2008. So that might be a thought too. At Biddeford, they have a Friends of Football there that just started a year ago before I arrived. And as far as I could tell, the people involved don't even have kids in the program. So that could be huge. Again, because of COVID-19 and everything happened, all the meetings were canceled. I start getting involved in it. So I'll see how that's going. But that's just a thought for some of you guys.
Hey, Mike, the last thing I think it's important that, because I know you guys are K through 12 as well at 11.
Yes.
Yeah. So and obviously, at Oxford Hills, they don't need that. But, when I came into South Portland, it was just a booster for the high school. And I think that if you have an opportunity to take in, the youth and make it a K through 12 or 1 through 12, whatever it is, it's a lot of work and a lot of moving parts, but it really does build that sense of community and program. And so any coaches out there that where it's split, I would encourage you to try to merge them, because I think that's critical. So.
All right. I misspoke on that first question. That was Coach Bertrand's question. So Coach Lasso, I'll get to your question kind of at the end. But I want to go, Coach Soren had a question that I thought was a good one, about rules in your program. Do you sign behavior contracts beyond that of what the administration might require? I know like our kids sign a drug and alcohol contract and a code of ethics contract, but we don't do anything beyond that. But what kind of rules do you have in your program? Do they sign any sort of contract like that? And then how do you deal with behavior issues both on and off the field? So I'm gonna go to Dave Turner first on that one, and then Tommy Bertrand gonna come to you next.
We basically have we fall under the guise of our athletic policy. Every student athlete and their parents have to sign a form prior to the start of the season, and it governs pretty much everything. It governs substance use and abuse, nicotine, social media. It's pretty overarching. So we don't have them sign anything beyond that. Basically, we're like a one-strike school. You get one shot. You violate something once, you're suspended, and the second time, you're all done. So, we do not in our football program have anything beyond that, other than the basic rules in terms of practice and attendance and all those things. I firmly believe that kids deserve an opportunity to have an avenue back. And I think they've really tried to improve our overall athletic policy for our kids. And so we haven't really had to go beyond that. And in an effort of consistency, an effort for us to be consistent, they kind of want us to stick to that. I think there is a line in there that allows us to kick somebody off if there's conduct that is egregious or detrimental. But for the most part, we have to stick to the athletic handbook and policy.
Coach Bertrand?
Yeah, similarly, I think I don't have them sign anything above and beyond what we've got in our athletic policy. I make it pretty well known early on that is the baseline, and that if they do something that violates that, there are rules about 2 weeks off, but I make it clear that I make the decisions about whether or not they actually play again, so they're welcome back on the team. But I will use 100% arbitrary judgment about whether or not they play. I use that just in that context because I think it's a firm line that needs to be drawn for kids around substances, so that specific area is one that I make it really clear, because I think that we've got that kind of a power within our positions. I used to have rules, and I was in the back seat of a van at a lobster bowl back in probably 1999 with Rob Munzing, and we were talking about when I was still up at Stearns. I said, if kids miss this many practices and they have to sit, and we went to Foxcroft, and I had to sit my running back because he violated this. And he said, we don't have any rules. It was Rob Munzing. He said, We don't have any rules. They just know how to behave. And it immediately changed my way of thinking about that so that we get to where I am now. So our kids know the Husky way, and you all probably have something similar. I use our code of conduct and our athletic handbook to my advantage, but I will let them know that in the end, as a coach, and I have support from our athletic director and our administration, I'll make those judgments beyond that myself. And it works for us, and sometimes it handcuffs me a little bit or puts me in a tough spot. And we had some stuff this year where I went above and beyond outside of our athletic code, and I was criticized by some of our community because it frankly cost us some games because we sat some kids that were above and beyond that, but I needed to do it for my program. And so I feel like I'm in a position where I can do that in my community and in my school. I would never do anything to skirt what the written rules are. So not sure that's exactly the right approach for everyone, but it's how we do it here, and they know it coming up through. And we pass that down through, and we share that with our lower grades as well. That's the expectation.
Well said, Coach. I'm going to go to Danny White and Chris Cates on this one. Being two of the younger guys on here, I'd be interested. This question came from somebody else, but how do you guys deal with parents? If you get, if there's some sort of issue or just kind of, number one, what's the policy and how do you kind of address parents at the beginning of the year? Maybe Danny, you could talk a little bit about that, and then Chris, maybe you could talk a little bit about, when things come up during the year, and you get those angry parents, how do you deal with that? So Danny, you're up first.
Yeah, sure. So I'll meet with the 8th grade parents in the spring. Also, late spring, at the early part of the summer, I'll meet with the rest of the parents as a group. But I'll meet individually with 8th grade parents first before school gets out, down at the middle school. Fortunately, I've lived in Dover my whole life. There's 4,000 people here. I played here. So I know most people here, so that's can be good, but can be bad. But for the most part, it is good. And I've been able to build a pretty good rapport with people. So since 2009, I've had 2 fights with parents, two altercations that I would call uncomfortable. So I've been pretty fortunate in that regard. But I think it's just I remain to be open. They all have my number. I'll respond to their text messages or their emails. I think that's the biggest thing that anybody would ask for is open line of communication. And most people are reasonable for the most part. So, there's no secret sauce on my end. It's just, I'm upfront with the communication and I respond to people in a timely manner. I don't think there's anybody here that wouldn't do that either. So that's pretty much been it. I also coach multiple levels here. So I coach youth football. So I know the parents from the kids' parents from a young age. So they get to know me, when the kids are in 4th grade. So for the most part, I know them well by the time they come to high school.
When you say altercation, do you mean like it went down outside of Pat's Pizza late at night, like that kind of altercation, or?
No, and not like it. No, and nobody ran out on the field or came out of the practice field or anything like that.
I'm just giving you a hard time.
Yeah, no, I'm still waiting for that to happen. That'd be good. I hope Max sticks around because he could be bodyguard.
You'll have to go back inside and grab your helmet and your jersey and throw it on.
Yeah, that's right.
Coach Cates, go ahead, man.
Sorry about that. I was muted there.
There you go.
So we do something kind of similar there, where we, we have a parent meeting. We don't just have it for the 8th graders. We have it for every year, and we require all parents to attend. And if they can't, I catch them at some other point during the before the season starts, and we kind of highlight the expectations. So I'm a little I'm a little different than Danny on that as far as I don't encourage them to talk to me. I kind of take a harder stance on that, and my biggest thing is kind of the whole chain of command thing. So it's the first sequence on that is, have you talked to your position coach, right? So if a parent's got an issue, that the parent comes to the coach, first thing I'm going to say is, has your kid talked to your position coach? So I put a lot on the kids to kind of handle that, and especially for the freshmen, the parents who they've done everything for their children over the course of the years, it kind of rubs them the wrong way a little bit. But so I'm kind of hands off with the parent communication at first. Obviously there's exceptions to that, but and I always tell them, I said, if you message me about when the bus is leaving or anything like that, I'm not going to answer you, right? It's I tell them to make their kids accountable for it, and kind of put them in control of that. Now, fortunately, I come from a community where the previous head coach had coached in the community for 40 something years, and he didn't generally care what people said about him, so he kind of set the tone for that pretty early. So I mean, I kind of stepped into a situation where I can kind of keep that going. Now, obviously, exceptions to that we speak to up front is obviously injury concerns and academic concerns. By all means, if a parent has an issue with that, then they can kind of skip the chain of command. They can come right to me. But so for us, has the player talked to the assistant coach? Has the player talked to the head coach after that? And when those two things have been satisfied, then we open the line of communication with the parent, and then that comes directly to me.
Danny O'Connell, going to go to you on the next one, and I'll take this one too. This one came from outside of the group. Do you have a team dinner during the season, and if so, who provides the food and beverage, and what day of the week do you do those?
Mike, we've known each other a long time, and I know why you went to me on team dinners. But as a career O-line guy, yes, we have a team dinner every week. Our booster group, similar to Aaron's group, and some of the others that talked, is a standalone entity for each sport, and our school has their own group. So our boosters put that on. We have one each week the night before the game. Back when I first started coaching, we had Saturday home games, so we did some Saturday morning breakfasts and lunches and things like that. But by and large, it's Thursday night. We do a potluck. We let anybody who wants to come. If you're bringing 5 family members, great. Just make sure you bring enough food for everybody. And it's been something that's been very unifying for us over the years. To break bread together the night before the game has been something that's brought us together. It's something that kids really enjoy. It's not always convenient for the head coach and athletic director to be in that meal, but it's something that we take very seriously and has worked out great for us.
Yeah, for us, we do ours on Thursday night as well. Our boosters set it up. They starting, I think, the year before last, they went to a system where they kind of have like a Google spreadsheet that they put out through the booster email chain, and people just sign up for food. Typically, the parents who kind of volunteer to serve the food, they'll eat after, but usually it's just the players and the coaches. We let all the players attend. Our freshmen do play that day, so if there's a home freshman game, they'll kind of come in, as we're kind of, maybe just finishing up or maybe mid-meal. So we'll make sure we feed those guys, and lots of times we'll leave something for them if they're coming back from an away game. And I think it's, that goes back, way back to when I played for Coach Kahn. We were doing that. It maintained through Coach County. We used to do them at people's houses back then, and we kind of outgrew that. You hate to see kids, having it at school just eliminates the idea of, kids, transporting themselves to, from school to that place. And, the potential for trouble just seems like it's less, at school. They had one up on the Highlands golf course the first year I was there. And a couple of kids got into a golf cart. And, that was about the time we decided to move it into the school for good. So, but they've been pretty good to us. And, I think it's pretty standard for most guys to do something like that. I think it's a good chance. Just kind of wind down the week, and good chance to feed your coaches at the end of the week too. I get a lot of volunteers on my staff, so throw a meal at those guys for everything they do. Coach Alasso, I'm going to go to you for this next one because I'm interested to hear your perspective. One of the coaches emailed in a question about, we're trying to boost our numbers and get more kids out for the program. And, you're walking the hallways of school and you see that kid who maybe looks the part a little bit, but he's not playing, and you think he might be able to help you. How do you go about recruiting that kid and trying to get him out on your team?
That's a great question because I used to always say to myself, when I become a head coach, these kids will be playing football. These kids will be playing football. And, it's not as easy as you think sometimes. What I traditionally have done is I will talk to the kid. I would try to do a fact finder and find out, kind of what his needs are, his desires are as an individual. A lot of kids with football, it's, sometimes they're just kind of afraid to play. So I always would kind of say, listen, I really want to help you. And if you don't want to play, that's great. But the most honest people in the world lie to themselves. So be really honest with me. And a lot of times you have kids, especially the basketball players, are great athletes that you want to recruit. Down in Virginia Beach, you had really huge high schools, 2,300, 2,500. And I had 160 kids coming off of football. We had to cut down to 110 because we only had 110 lockers. And you know how many multiple sport athletes I had? In the 9 years I was there, I had 4 that played just outside football. And I would recruit my brains out. And every once in a while, I got lucky with the basketball player. But they would tell me, well, I'm kind of afraid to get hit. And I would tell them, listen, we run a basketball type offense. It's basketball and grass. It's a fast break offense. We spread it out. We throw the ball all over the place. Yeah, you're going to get hit when you tackle, but we're not going to be having these hitting drills. They think of Oklahoma, right? Think about when they watch stuff on TV. They're thinking of nutcracker drills, Oklahoma drills, and I will encourage them honestly that we don't practice that way. And sometimes they'll open their eyes. I would use other kids to recruit, try to get them to play. I'd ask them to come out. If they don't like it, I wouldn't be upset with them. I had a lot more success in Massachusetts recruiting kids. And then probably the biggest thing was I used other players, their friends, and I would tell them, listen, I want you to try for 2 weeks. What do you get to lose? If you don't like it, you don't have to play. I'll tell you what, though, the 4 players that I was successful recruiting that were basketball players at Cox, 3 of the 4 had Division I-A scholarships after playing for a couple of years. And what's funny is one kid was a friggin' animal. I remember him in the 3rd game of the season, he kept on tapping you on the shoulder. I had him playing receiver. He wanted to get out on the kickoff team. He wanted to hit someone. And by his senior year, he was playing outside linebacker, and he started 3 years at ECU, an outside linebacker. A couple of years earlier, he was telling me he was afraid of contact. So usually that's it. Usually it's something simple. If you can find out why they don't want to play, and if it's a parent, I'll try to flush that out. So I'll call your parent. What's your parent's number? I'll call him right now. Well, it's not really my parent. I had one player who was probably the best football player I could have ever had that never played. He played during 2 days and ate everybody up, and then kind of got banged up. Not because his reason wasn't because he was afraid to play. He wanted to work and didn't want to give up his summers in August in Virginia Beach because it would start August 1st there, 2 days. Teron Wilson's name is, I'll never forget him. It was unbelievable. And, he wanted to work. So you try to find out what it is. You try to get others incorporated in and do your best you can and stay with it, because I think the biggest key is it's not a rifle shot. It's more of a bazooka shot. So there's a lot of good athletes. There's a lot of kids that can contribute to football. So instead of just focusing on the 3 or 4 studs that, I went to a Biddeford basketball game. I saw 2 kids playing basketball that weren't in the football team. I went right after them. And that's a rifle shot. A bazooka shot, we're going after 15, 16 kids. And 2 or 3 are going to stick. So I think it's in quantity sometimes. And you'll be surprised how many kids will become football players. I have a saying that I always tell the coaches, and I tell myself, is fish grow as big as the aquarium. As educators, I'm a retired teacher, but we say, we talk about high expectations. but that's a little different than what I'm talking about. You know, you put a fish grows as big as an aquarium. You just kind of it's nonchalant. You know, that you don't make a big deal of them not being great athletes. You accentuate what they can do. And that might be just going downfield and being a mosquito block on a DB as a receiver. And, you know, when you get a lot of guys like that, some of them are going to develop. I mean, think about it. You guys coach long enough. You had that one kid coming as a freshman. I never thought he was going to play. And he's one of your better players by his time as a senior. So how many kids does it take to get to that one kid? 8, 9, 10. So you want to recruit in quantity, and that's what I kind of been doing. I did that in Massachusetts. Minnetonka had school about 1,100 kids, and we never had less than 80 out there. Early in the first half, we probably had 90 to 100, and then our enrollment went down a little bit, and the concussion thing kind of hit, which I fought with, stats on soccer. You guys all know how that, when they compare football with high school soccer and high school lacrosse, they separate male and female. That's a huge difference. It's the same sport, but they separate those two sports with the stats. So, the numbers went down a little bit. That at Biddeford, it's a much smaller school. I think we have 750 kids. And in a short time, I had to roam the halls and talk to kids. I try to recruit as many kids as I possibly could. And, I'm talking a lot here, but kids contribute to the programs in many different ways, and to me, there's sometimes powers in numbers. And sometimes a good athlete will see a couple of kids that they know they're better than on the football team, and all of a sudden they might want to come out. It's kind of like you always want to, the person that's retiring, you always want to treat really well as they go out the door, because what are the other people thinking? How am I going to treat it 10 years from now, 5 years from now? So you treat the kids real well. They come up there and they're promoting your program. And I just want to add one thing too about parents. I think it's real important to have a meeting before school starts. Hopefully you can, not even in August, like in June. Because from June to August when football starts is a long time away for parents, and you could get away with being real blunt with them. And I always told them that I will never, ever, ever, never, ever have one of my coaches or me ever talk to you about playing time. I will talk, coaches will talk to your son 100 times a day about playing time. You need to send them to us. I will never. So I want you to know right now, because I don't want you to get mad, is the coaches will tell you we can't talk to you, and I will tell you that. And that's it. There's no argument that. I said the second thing is you got to remember sometimes we have to be on the same page. You could do more damage to your child in a simple dinner conversation than my staff or I could do in a whole football season. I said, please think about that. And then I would tell them, I'm always available. One of the coaches said you could talk to me anytime. And I would say, I'm always available except 24 hours before a game and 24 hours after a game. And I'll talk to you about anything other than playing time, playing position, and other players. And that has really got me through most of my career. If I had some knuckleheads, yep. But I can tell you right now, I never once had a conversation with a parent about playing time. Not once. I had principals say, I have a parent who called me saying you won't talk to him about the kid playing time. And I said, no, I won't. And they usually support that. And so I think you kind of hold your ground there, but by having a meeting in June, there's a lot that you can tell the parents. And the other thing I'll tell you parents is, and I wouldn't say this during the season, because it's too close. I wouldn't say it in August. I'd say this in June. I'd say, I have 4 children. Now I have 5 grandchildren. I would never, ever want one of them to come home to me and say my coach or my teacher didn't like me. That would be the worst thing in the world to ever perpetuate that myth. There's not a coach or a teacher in the history of this country who's ever not liked a kid. They wouldn't be doing that. So if your son comes home to you and says a coach or a teacher doesn't like me, I hope you do not throw gas on that fire. Hopefully you'll put that out, because that is just horrible thought, and I would never want that. for my child. And you know what? I've never heard that either. And I say that at the start of the season. So think about who your audience is as parents. My audience at Virginia Beach, which is predominantly African-American, was a lot different than the mountain people I had at Minichog, which is going to probably be different from the people I have at Biddeford. So you got to know who your audience is about what to address. But I think that, have you guys ever met a football coach that didn't like kids, was an ass? I haven't. I've never met, I think I'm the biggest ass I've ever met of the football coaches. They're all great. I don't care where I've been. They're all great coaches that care about kids. And so I think, you can hold that up pretty comfortably by just addressing 3 or 4 things at that meeting, and it will eliminate a lot of the problems. And then lastly, I would say as a coach, you have to, be in the middle. The white line is in the middle of the road. It's probably the worst place to drive. So you either want to be totally submerged in what's going on or be aloof. You don't want to be in the middle. So that'll be my advice to younger coaches. But
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Coach. I'm going to go to Coop and Aaron on this one. This one came in from the outside too, and I think you guys have both done it. So going away to camp in the preseason for the first week. What does that look like? I think you guys maybe even went together one year, maybe, I don't know, or you've gone to the same place maybe. But just talk a little bit about it. If you take your team away for camp, what that looks like.
Yeah, it's friggin' awesome.
Yield to my elder.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome. It's one of the best things that we do. We've done it since 2002. We've gone to a number of different camps. The one we've been at for the last few years is Camp Caribou. It's in Winslow, Maine. We take our guys up on Monday, and we practice in the morning at Bonnie Eagle. We travel in between practices, get up there, have our second practice up at camp. We'll stay there the entire week. Our departure day will depend on when and where our scrimmage is. So we've scrimmaged at camp, and that's one of the years that when Aaron was still at Cape, and he brought Cape up there. We scrimmaged up there on Saturday, came home after the scrimmage. It's tremendous, and I would encourage any of you guys that might be thinking about it to really, it's a great thing, and it does cost a lot of money. We ask our kids to have to, and families to have to pay for it. But to me, it's worth every nickel. Like I said, we'll be there from Monday to whenever we have to leave to scrimmage. And during that time, you got the kids don't miss a practice because they're not going anywhere. We get fed outstandingly. Kids get a chance to swim after the practice, so they're going to get a chance to cool off if it's a hot morning. It's just really the positives are endless. So I would endorse it wholeheartedly.
One of the questions from the chat was what the typical cost was, either for the week or per kid, how that breaks down.
Yeah, so we pay $275 per kid for the week, and their Caribou's good enough where they don't charge us coaches. So it's basically $275 times however many kids that we bring with us. We'll bring our freshmen too that don't typically practice with us, but we'll bring our freshmen as well. And it really the people that sell the whole thing the best are the players, because they're going to go home, they're going to tell their parents, I had a great time. And when their parents hear that, now you've roped them into, they want to support it. They see their kid happy. They see their teammates happy. It's a great bonding time for us. I mean, Caribou does a great job with that. We have a campfire and a cookout on the last night, where kids toast s'mores and we do a little team building thing. It's invaluable to us. I can't foresee us, like, it was one of the things I'm worried about right now with our situation with the coronavirus is, are we going to be able to do it? I'm not sure yet. If we
when did you say you guys do that? When
we do it the first week. So
first week.
So we'll, like I said, we'll come in, we'll bring our kids in, we'll practice at Bonnie Eagle first thing in the morning on Monday. We'll plan our departure, so we travel in between practices, so we don't miss any practice time. Get up there in time, plenty of time to have our second practice on Monday. and then go from there. Meetings at night. Once we can do walkthroughs on Wednesday, we'll do walkthroughs at night too. And so yeah, first week.
Thanks.
Is there anything maybe, Aaron, insurance-wise that needs to be addressed there? That was another one that came up in the chat.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Probably every school is different, Coop. I don't know but our school covers. You know, we actually worked and got a binder. I don't know what the term is, but that was one thing that the school kind of took care of, because you have to imagine baseball teams travel to sometimes to Florida and other basketball teams may travel out of state or whatever. So it's kind of the same thing. So it's not new, and so there's insurance that covers that. But I mean, I would concur. I mean, my first experience with it was with Coop at Caribou, and that's something I've always wanted to do, but I just had young kids, and I guess we all understand how important camaraderie and team building and coming together is for football, and so and we all accomplish that in the regular season and just being at school or whatever, but man, this absolutely takes it to a whole other level. And you're starting the season by doing it. And so in a day and age where, you might argue that kids are a little bit more disconnected with whatever, technology or social media. I mean, this kind of brings it back old school, and they spend all that time together and with the coaches bond. And if you have a chance to do it with another team, I mean, we had a great time with Bonnie Eagle and those guys. And I just concur with Coop. I mean, if you can find a way to do it, absolutely do it. And I'm in the position now that Coop is, like, I can't imagine not doing it. It's that invaluable. So absolutely.
Awesome. Coop, how do you deal with, like some kids, like, if they think they have commitments that week that might take them away from the camp, like a kid still has a job, and Aaron, you can answer that as well. If the kid really doesn't think they can go to the camp, how do you address that?
Yeah, that's a tough one. It hasn't come up that often since we've been doing it. So, but it does come up. Like some kids, we're asking parents and families to pay $275, and despite me repeatedly telling kids, listen, our boosters will help you out. Come to me if you have financial problems. We'll find a solution for you. We let so our kids can sell our program ads, game program ads during the summertime. We credit kids for doing that if they do it. So we have means by which to help kids finance the camp. But there's still kids that they're a little proud to come to you. Their parents are telling them, "Nope, you can't do it. Nope, you can't do it. We can't afford it." Sometimes even parents are too proud to say, listen, here's the situation. So that's really the issue that we have. We don't have a lot of commitments, like a kid trying to, if kid's got a job, he's probably already not working that week anyways, because we be practicing, twice a day if we're at Bonnie Eagle. So, so it's hard to maintain a summer job. We have had a kid that had a baseball commitment at the end of the week that we were there, so he left on Friday. But we don't have a lot of cross commitments. But what we do have is how our family's going to pay, and that's an issue that is a constant one. And unfortunately, despite our me being proactive that way, a lot of times it's we see the kid the Monday after, and so but I'm at the mindset that I can't let that hold us back from all the benefits that we get from going. So that's kind of what it is right now for us.
Awesome. I want to stay on the topic of preseason. I'm going to go Coach Bertrand and Coach Soren here, kind of a larger school perspective and a smaller school. Just in terms of your schedule on those double sessions days, those first 5 days, how does it break down for you? Do you like to do like offense in the morning, defense in the afternoon? How do you kind of progress through the week with your drills and things like that? I'll start with Coach Soren.
Yeah, we have a couple issues with that. Our district's huge. Our buses drive over 3,000 miles every day to get kids to school. And so our issue really gets to be, getting kids there. When I think we were at Poland when it changed, but we could have 2 back-to-back in the morning with a little break. That was a better way to do it. But and it is what it is. But we go in the morning 9 to 11, and we go 4 to 6, and we do 1 offense in the morning. And it depends. We have one of them's offense, one's defense, and we go the whole first week doing that. We'll start adding special teams in. We try to do it Wednesdays and stuff as we start. We don't do it right away. Our installs, I try to cut down our offensive plays and come up with a 3-day install and then repeat that again. That never actually works, but that's the plan every week. Our freshmen don't practice with us. So the 2 coaches there, they have their own. They just practice in the mornings. This past year, a pretty talented freshman class, and so I never done this before, but I had a freshman come up and practice with us in the afternoon. So I asked 3 kids to come up that I thought could do it and work with us. And because I want to play on the defensive side of the ball, we just had morning practices were offense and the afternoon were defense. And so we do that. We'll do a Saturday morning. We just do 1 practice. It depends on the scrimmage. Now it's changed, so we can do Saturday scrimmages. We used to do Monday scrimmages, but we haven't really had walkthroughs, and that basically is because of the transportation issue and with the parents having to transport such a long distance with it. And we have a little later in the afternoon, not just for coolness, but for parents getting off. And also I've got a couple coaches that work. And that's basically our preseason plan.
Awesome. Coach Bertrand?
Yeah, we just, it's pretty traditional. We see what we've got for install, and honestly, we'll look at the weather. A lot of times we'll just see what it looks like first. We go early, and then later in the afternoon, we try to space those out. We just want to make sure that we can get all those things in there that we need to get done in offense, to be honest. So we'll take the better part of the day to put our offensive stuff in, and the defense on the other side of the day. And it all depends on, the group that we've got and where we're at. So that first week is pretty important. We've got a pretty sharp install sequence in, but, you just never know, what kids you're going to have. So we kind of move things around later in the week as we go. We got a plan in place, but we, you just don't know what's going to happen. So, our goal really isn't to get to that first scrimmage. I'm pretty frustrated. I've been vocal about it, about the acclimation period, and that there's a lot that we can do. I think that would serve our kids and our programs a little better than to go through an accelerated acclimation period that puts us in pads on a Friday and then you scrimmage on a Saturday. So we don't spend a lot of time preparing for that scrimmage. We hope to get through it without any carnage. And I've even talked about not having that scrimmage on that first week. We will never scrimmage on a Saturday unless we're forced to, and then we'll probably go and we prefer that Monday. But it's one of those things that we try to protect ourselves that first week and get the stuff in the way we can and make sure that we're healthy for going into the season. So. We're pretty traditional in our install, but I don't want to monopolize all the time here, so I'll turn it over to somebody else.
Coach Turner, one of the questions that came up in the chat there, maybe you can answer this one, is what's your opinion on start time for the first session? What time do you guys go, and why do you do that?
We go 7:30 in the morning. We used to go at 7, but we found that when you have somebody traveling 45 minutes, it gets a little tough for kids to get there. We go 7:30 to 9:30 in the morning, and then at night we usually go 5 to 7. And the main reason is we try to stay out of the heat as much as we can that first week. Even though by the end of practice on our field, it's heavily, the shade's gone, so it's pretty hot. But we try to stay out of the heat. So we'll split our practices in the morning and in the evening. 7:30, 9:30 in the morning, and then 5 to 7 at night, just in an effort to give kids an opportunity to rest. And it also allows kids, having a small roster, we have to allow kids that can't make it to one session to make it to the other, usually because of work. And by spacing them out, it gives us the opportunity to at least get the kids to attend one of the practices.
Awesome. I want to shift gear now. There's a question about, once the game ends on Friday night, what kind of happens between Friday night and the time you meet with your kids on Monday? So, Danny White, going to go to you first on that one, and then Chris Cates, I'll come down to you next.
Sure. So I fortunately have, and many of you probably do too, but my experience is we have a really good video guy that takes care of us, and I have the film before I leave the locker room Friday night. So by the time I get home, I will watch the film on my own. Usually everyone's in bed by then, so I'll take a look at that. Saturday morning, I will speak to each of my coaches as far as their areas, and we'll have a game plan going in to Sunday, which we will meet Sunday mornings as a staff, typically at school, and we will we'll break the film down together, and we will come up with a game plan going forward, the things that we need to address, and then we'll turn the page and we'll start breaking down film on our next opponent, and then we'll get either the kids messaged out to the kids through Huddle or through group text on the things that they need to jump on Huddle, and then on Monday, by the time we see them on Monday, we're ready to turn the page to our next opponent because they've taken a good look at the film and addressed the things that we need them to address from the game the previous Friday night.
How about you, Chris?
Yeah, so our workflow is a little bit different because we actually play Saturday home games. So we're in the process of getting lights. Hopefully it completes this year. But
Nice.
Colby College actually donated their old ones to us. So hopefully have those up here this season. But so for us, so if we play Friday night, our workflow is pretty similar to Dan's there. We have a checklist for our coaching staff where for a Huddle data input. We try to get as much of that done during the game, with whether it be with kids on notepads or kids tagging stats during the game. But yeah, first course of action is we split that up between our assistant coaches, and we get all that data kind of loaded into the system. And then I'll run through my preliminary review of the film, get our markup done. So when we meet Sunday morning, we already have a kind of a course of action on where we're going to go. We still meet on Sunday mornings, even if we play Saturdays. It kind of accelerates my process on that a little bit. Turns into more of a later night than it does kind of a gradual flow throughout the weekend. So we'll meet Sunday morning, and then we use the Huddle play tools for the playbook. So I actually prepare any installs that need to go out to the kids. So I'll send those out, mid-afternoon on Sunday. These kids are on their phone all day long at school, so I'll probably get in trouble for this at one point for when they rat me out to their teachers. But you can see throughout the course of the day on Monday where the kids are looking at the installs you put out, and they so it kind of gives a little bit of head start on Monday practice.
Awesome. Dan O'Connell, coming to you for this one. What is your strategy or philosophy regarding the level of physicality in practice, specifically, midweek on those Tuesdays and Wednesdays?
So a lot of our philosophy, quite frankly, has to do with our roster and the way it's made up. At John Babs, we don't have a youth program. So a lot of times we are dealing with first-year players coming in, and even first-year players that are upperclassmen. And so there's a lot of teaching that has to be done. And really, like Coach Aloso alluded to, there's a real fear for some kids about contact. And certainly that abounds at John Babs. I think he made a good point. It doesn't matter if you're, white, black, brown, pink. It doesn't matter if you're going to have issues when it comes to kids in contact. So we try to limit that as much as possible, but put them in positions to be successful with it from a teaching standpoint. And then, go about our drills in a way that they get acclimated to contact, and then try to bring them to game level for periods of 15 and 20 minutes at a time during the week. But we don't hit a lot just because we want them to be ready from a preparation standpoint. But we have a lot of kids, especially the young ones that haven't played before, that a lot of programs might consider hangers on, that we're going to need in the future. So we just try to do our due diligence to keep them prepared, but not scare them off by excessive contact. It shows in our tackling, quite frankly, a lot of the times. It certainly wasn't good for us in our very physical matchup with MCI in the semifinals last year, because they kicked our ass once they decided to run downhill. But it's just kind of the situation we're in. So if we had 60 kids and we could hit more and deal with the injuries, we would. But with a 30-man roster and a lot of kids that haven't played before, our hands are kind of tied.
Mm-hmm. Aaron, how about you? You muted, Aaron.
Yeah, no. So this is one of my biggest sort of struggles as far as the level of contact. I mean, I go back and forth with it, but I'm with Dan. It kind of does depend on the guys that we have, and so we obviously will always set out to have as little as possible, just for injury prevention and just focus on more fundamentals and techniques. But we've had years where we'll have what we think are pretty productive and effective weeks of practice and blocking but doing it on non-contact, and then get to a game and get exposed, right? And so then we've had to sort of incorporate that back into our practice routine. And so I guess it really does depend on the guys that we have, but we'll tackle once a week if we have to go live. But listening to the defensive roundtables this week and just kind of listening to the different philosophies, and I'm going to check out the Dartmouth way that was talked about. And I just think it's so critical and it's so important for multiple reasons. Obviously, we have to be able to tackle effectively, but also keep the kids safe. And so for us, it's something that we're always evaluating and we're always looking at. But heavy emphasis on technique and fundamentals, and we'll bang around if we have to.
Mike, can I add to that?
Yeah, go ahead, Steve.
We would do a thing, whiz, thud, and then live. And we'd do live, maybe 10 minutes twice, on a Wednesday, maybe 10 minutes on a Tuesday. We would do what we call vice or sprint tackle, which was a 3 to 5 minute, kind of almost a warm-up before we did defense. It was a team drill, and guys with their positions, and then we had dummies out, 2 dummies on either side, so 4 kids would leave their feet, tackle a dummy, just to get their minds, understand that sometimes you leave your feet to tackle. Well, last year, a really interesting thing happened, and this is not scientific. It was just an anecdotal observation on my part. We had some injury. We were a very good team. We won 9 games. We didn't want to get guys hurt. We didn't go live. We just went thud, which was live until, the whistle. Well, what's key is that, the whistle's power for a coach. So you have to, understand when to blow it, when not to blow it. Because you don't want to get the kids anticipating a whistle. So I was always cognizant when to blow a whistle, because I wanted sometimes a guy to finish a touchdown run. Other times a short time, I'll blow quick. So the kids never try to anticipate that. Well, my point is, though, during thud, it got to be physical. It got to be to the point where guys weren't going to the ground where injuries significantly increase. But it got to be really physical. And then doing that drill, we ended up doing that sprint vice drill at the end of practice as well, just again that they're leaving their feet to make a tackle sometimes. And I would say, I know we had some talent last year, but we've had talent. in the years before. It was probably the best tackle team I had, including Virginia Beach. So I think sometimes going live in practice might be a little overrated, because sometimes, think about when you played, right? You kind of got tired sometimes, it's half-assed, you're falling, that's where injuries occur. So I think Wiz and Thud really can do a job, especially if you have some tackling drills, not against each other, against dummies where they're leaving their feet. I think it kind of works. And I used to be a very physical type coach, and I am not anymore. And I have not seen less aggression, less tackling. Just, it depends on the type of kids you have, obviously. But I think it's smart not to hit as much as did back in the day, so to speak.
Yeah, I would add to that, just speaking from a perspective on the other side of the football. The one conversation we always have is that we used to block live a lot in practice, a lot, and our line coach was big on it. The idea of moving targets and being physical, up front was, we really wanted that to be our identity. And sometimes you have those years where it's just more of a mismatch between what you have on the first team and what you have on the second team. So one of the things we've done to alleviate that a little bit is we put we'll have like a run game period every Tuesday where we, on Wednesday where we block live, but guys have shields. And we have a few guardian caps. We put those on the guys up front, both sides. The look team and the offensive line, and do that. And I don't know if it's helped necessarily, but I think especially as much as we pull and things like that, to be able to get the backs to fit behind the pullers and do some of that. That's been one of the things that's been helpful to our jet sweep scheme, is we can still do it live, but we can have the moving targets with the shields and be a little bit safer. So I'm going to go to another question, Coop. I'm going to throw this one over to you. This came from Coach Moore in the chat. What's the ratio of indie, group, and team time in practice, and does it vary from offense to defense?
It's not going to vary offense to defense for us, really. We're going to start off with 15 minutes of pre-practice. It's basically indie time for coaches to work their positions. After stretch, we're going to go to indie. Well, we're going to go to our defense. We're going to go to our tackle circuit first, and then indie. So it's going to be about 25 to 30 minutes of indie, about 30 minutes of group, and then mixing in a couple different team periods with some special teams. So we won't do a long team period. We'll do 10 minutes, break off, maybe do a special teams, maybe do 7-on-7, come back, do another team period. But it won't change offense to defense. I want our coaches coaching. I want our coaches working with their individual position groups. So they're gonna get half hour a day to be able to do that. And like I said, we might mix in some of that indie time with some different groups, say quarterbacks, receivers. We like on offensive day to send our running backs down with our offensive line. So it's basically a kind of a modified inside run period. So we'll mix in some different groups like that, and then go to our bigger group periods like 7-on-7. But yeah, so that's how we're going to structure practice.
Awesome. I had a couple on here. I'd be interested in just hearing from a couple guys. You don't have to get too in detail, but just maybe some things you found successful in the past. One, when you have a team that has, pretty big expectations and on paper or, in the press or whatever, it's supposed to be pretty good and is kind of underachieving. How do you handle that? And then I'll come around and ask a couple more guys the kind of flip side of that. When you have, look at the question again. When you have a team that, just is successful and they're clicking on all cylinders, how do you kind of keep that team grounded? So I'm going to go to Coach Cates first because they were pretty good this year. How do you, once you get on a roll, how do you keep those guys grounded? You're muted, Coach.
There we go. So, we kind of fell into that category this year, though, where we had high expectations, but we struggled right out of the gate. I mean, we were,
That's
you know,
true. Take it from that angle instead.
yeah, we were 2-2. We got our doors blown off by Winthrop. I think we lost by 40 points in that game. You know, couldn't do anything right. You know, and a lot of it was just, you know, kids were kind of getting in their own heads, and you know, so we just, you know, we're typically a pretty fast install team early in the season, and this just wasn't a team that was picking it up quickly. So I mean, we cut our playbook right back to almost nothing about week 5, and just kind of simplified it for the kids, and you know, started to build a little bit of confidence. But I mean, we you know, I think we went 3-2, and then we lost to York. So I mean, we you know, week 6 of the season we were 500. So you know, we didn't have early success by any means, but you know, good thing about this group of kids though, they were pretty resilient. You know, didn't have a lot of kids that got wrapped up in the whole social media aspect of it. So you know, biggest thing for us was just kind of downplaying you know, the panic, I guess, of what goes on. You know, and it's tough for a 16-year-old kid to, you know, when you expect to be good, to not to be struggling. But you know, these kids did a pretty good job with that. You know, but then in hindsight, the previous 2 years, I mean, we you know, we didn't necessarily have high expectations, but you know, we went 7-1 both seasons and got bounced in the first round of the playoffs. So I mean, I'd almost rather start slower. You know, I think it kind of helps with that message you're trying to put to the kids, as far as, you know, you got to put your best effort in every single week, or it doesn't happen. You know, the wins don't happen. So I think it worked to our advantage this year, but you know, it's definitely tough to keep those kids off of social media and, you know, start hearing what the media has to say about them and everything else.
Tommy, you guys have been known at MCI for always making a run late and seem to be playing your best at the end of the year. What do you think has been the key there for you guys to kind of be that type of team?
Well, it's the same thing. We, you know, the stuff I've been talking about. We try to make everything work towards that final goal. You know, we gotta get there. We gotta be healthy when we get there. We've got to make sure that our kids have understood that it's a long season, and they've got to follow the rules, and they've got to maintain those things. So and so we talk about that early on, that we might lose a game early on or two, but the goal is for it to be an 11 or 12 week season. So the things we did in mid-season when we sat kids over grade sheets. I did extra grade sheets above and beyond anything we had to do at the school, and we sat kids in one of our biggest games because they didn't get signatures from a teacher who were starters in a game. If we didn't do that then, do you think down the stretch in 9, 10, 11, 12, the kids are going to be towing the line? I'm with Dan. We've got our numbers are low, and we've got to have our kids healthy, and we've got to have them there, and we've got to have them poised and ready to go. So for us, it's that. We don't do a lot of hitting and kids get worn down. We don't do a ton in the summer because it becomes a long season. So I've become pretty aware of that you only have so much time with them, and you want to peak at the end. So everything we do is geared towards what happens in those last 4 or 5 weeks. It's all geared toward that. Awesome. Dave Turner, I'm going to slide over to you. A couple of years ago, you guys had one of the best defenses I've coached against. That was a great team. And you could tell that those guys were certainly feeling their oats as the year went on and feeling pretty dominant. How did you kind of keep those guys in check and kind of keep their eye on the prize?
Wasn't that when Jonesy took over the defense? Was that the same year?
Maybe. I don't recall. Yeah. It was a unique situation for us, having that stretch of I think we won I don't know how many in a row after losing the first game of the season, but we'd had some experience with success, but we were really rolling, and I think we started to, as Coach Kate said, read our clippings a little bit. But one of the things that we try to do similarly, if we're in a situation like we were this past year where we were struggling, is you go in, and it's good to do after a win. You go in and you point out the things that you did well. Geez, we did this well. But, fellas, in order for us to get to where we want to get to, in order for us to, beat the best teams, we have to clean up A, B, C, and D because we aren't doing a lot of things well too. And so one of the things that we've focused on is if it's a negative situation and we're underachieving, we try to highlight the positives while bringing out the negatives. And in the reverse, if we are rolling, we try to point out the positive, but more or less emphasize what we need to do to improve, and then try to remind them that the way we get to where we want to is to take what we've learned and use it in the week of practice. But we found that teaching and winning, when you win games, it's good to point out the negatives in the wins, and that's kind of what we did with those guys. I don't know if it helped, but we tried to.
Helped against us, man. Coach Sorrell, I'm going to go over to you next. I think you guys, I would classify you guys as maybe having some high expectations, coming to the year in terms of, you guys are trying to kind of crack that, that upper echelon of A and kind of stake your claim out there. So, what's the approach, you're kind of taking there as you guys have kind of moved up the ladder in A?
Yeah, that's exactly where we're at. We're at the point where we want to be up with the Bunny Eagles and TAs and the Scarboroughs, but we're not. And it's when we step on the field with them, it's almost like spotting them a couple touchdowns sometimes. So I guess what I'm focusing on with the kids this past year is I finally got 3 classes that are pretty good, and the senior class coming in has kind of been a bit of underachievers. They've been good, but they've lost games that they probably shouldn't have. And then the 2 classes below, they just think they're going to win. They just think they're going to win. They don't. And I always say to my kids, we're getting this next level. It's like I think the bad teams worry about losing. The sort of the good to mediocre teams worry about winning, and the great teams just play. And I'm trying to get my kids just to play down, so not worry about when Bonnie Eagles kids step on the field, that green and white, it's just a nameless, faceless opponent, and you got to control what you can control. And that, I think that's the biggest piece, and getting the senior class to buy in and not worry about, because they worry about losing all the time, and I think that they're at a point where they believe a little bit more. It was nice for them to be with that Colton Carson group. Those kids never thought about losing. They just played. And I always talk too about priorities with the kids. And I said, what are your priorities here in this moment? Like, how are you feeling in this moment? Because, it's like conditioning. I'm like, you can prioritize, you feel sorry for yourself in this moment because you're tired, or you can prioritize that you need to do this and do this well to win. And I think that those, we're getting to the point now where finally little things matter, because they didn't matter. It didn't matter who we played. When we were 500-ish. I mean, we were that again this year, but we competed better. But when we were losing records, we were going to lose whether we did a little thing right or not. This year, we played really well against Bonnie Eagle, and those kids you just can't stop a play. And in our moment when we had a chance to take a lead, their kids made plays. Our kids were probably overthinking that piece, and their kids were like, we're just not going to lose, and then they go on and win a state championship. And I think that I try to use those examples every day with our kids as well, and try not to overthink it, really.
Coop, you've been at the top of the mountain a few times. You certainly have been the team with a target on your back a few times. How have you handled that with those guys when, you've been fortunate enough to win one and then you come back and you might have a lot of that team coming back the next year? What kind of approach do you take with that type of group?
I think that, when you've had success, it's something you got to expect that, next year that we're going to be the team everybody wants to beat. And we were fortunate this past year where we could kind of put the target on Thornton's back and go after them. And so, we obviously need to know that. I think you start off right from the get-go where you got to explain to kids that here, the kids that played for you last year, they're going to remember. So, hey, remember how we felt last year when, when we're trying to overtake Thornton and win a championship. Well, that's how everybody's going to feel about us this year. And so, you know, from there, you got to get a read on your kids. I think, you know, before you even start, the majority of your team either expects to win at the end or they don't expect to win at the end. And Mark was just kind of pointing that out with some of his teams. And I think you got to read that as a coach. Last year, our team expected to win at the end. I knew that. They knew that. And so that's going to affect how you coach them on a daily basis from the middle of August till the Saturday before Thanksgiving. And other times you get a sense, well, this team doesn't really think they can win, and you got to kind of bring them along. And it's up to you as a coach to figure that out. So, in my opinion, based on what I know about our kids that are coming back think they can win another one. And so now it's up to me as a coach to kind of plot that course as to what I'm going to need to do to make sure we can navigate the season week in, week out, and be there on that Saturday, November. So how that's done, a lot's going to depend on, you know, what happens day to day. I think one of the very effective things that we did last year was, no matter what happened during the year, we always said we're going to play our best game on November 23rd. And so we're going to get after kids during the week, and especially on Mondays when we watch film. Here are all our mistakes. Here's all the things we need to improve on. Here's what we need to do. But then also hit them with, but don't worry about it, because we're going to play our best game on November 23rd. And so that was a very effective coaching tool that I thought last year on what we did. No matter what happened, we played bad down at Sanford. Our last game, week 9, we were terrible. And we weren't really prepared, and they had some kids hurt. We thought we were going to win. We weren't very good. And so I got to get after them, obviously. But then I'm finishing with, but look, it's going to be all right, because we're going to play our best game on November 23rd. And so our kids really bought into that. And I think you as a coach, you got to read the sense of your team before the season, and go from there. Like I said, in my opinion, with our guys next year, we think we can win again. So I gotta make sure that I chart the course appropriately, but our guys know here's what TA is going to think of us next year. They're going to try to get us back. Here's what Oxford Hills is going to think about us. They almost had us beat. And so we got to be ready for those challenges this coming year. You know, a little bit different than what we did last year. And so as a head coach, that's your job. That's what you got to do for your team.
Yeah, I think one of the keys for us this year was, having gone through the ringer for a couple of years in a row. And, we just tried to really play up the piece of, just having a lot of resolve and a lot of character for what we've been through. And, we had gone up to Kennebunk when those guys were freshmen and almost upset them in a 1-8 game and kind of lost on a real bad call on a 2-point conversion that they didn't count at the end of the game. We would remind them of those things. We had a real tough, the number 1 seed getting beat by Gardner, who we cranked earlier in the year. The next year when those guys were sophomores, and then obviously losing to, Dave's team beat us twice, and I really think they outplayed us and outcoached us in both those games. I don't think it was that we lost them. They definitely beat us for sure. Obviously, we had some, the unfortunate thing with Pete Casey go on that year, and losing a coach, and a dad from your system was tough. But we really preach to our kids that, we've been through so much that there's no way we're not going to find a way to do this. And no matter what happens, we're going to be ready for it. And then certainly when we played Tommy's team, in the state game, I mean, they outplayed us and outcoached us the entire first half for sure. And, to our kids' credit, they sat back on that resolve and that belief that they had that ultimately they had just been through so much and had worked so hard that they were going to get through it. I also think back to my 2013 team, and that was a team that had real high expectations. Other than, we were great at 21 positions. The one position we sucked at was quarterback. We played three guys and kind of found a way. But that team was really, really good and really, really talented and really, really full of themselves. And we just flat out about mid-season decided that we needed to kick their ass. And we had played, the kids will call it, if you ask somebody on that team, they would call it the Lake Region week, because it was a week that we were playing Lake Region and, they were not very good and we were going to beat them by whatever we wanted to beat them by. We have a thing about playing your square and taking care of your area, and some kids had left some trash in the locker room, and a couple kids didn't have knee pads when they got out to practice, and we had, I'm not sure I could get away with some of those things 5, 6, 7 years later that we did that day, but we rocked them and just let them know, like, you guys are not as good as you think you are, and you definitely don't run this ship. Like, we're going to win this thing even if we have to lose a couple of you along the way, no problem. And I think that's an important message to send to kids as well. And we're all doing it. Like, it's bigger than you. Like, it's not about you. And we really try to take that approach. We had a lot of talented guys this year, but really, John Moran put up something in the chat of, what's the kind of the number one thing you're trying to teach your kids in terms of a life lesson through football. And for me, it's humility. Like, you're just, when you're part of a family, whether it's your football family or your real family or whatever, you're just part of something bigger than you. And it's your job to serve the rest, not to really look out for yourself. And, Coach, to go back to Coach Alasso, he had the question I forgot to put in here, but, what are you most proud of as Maine football coaches in your association? And I think it's that. We got a lot of humble dudes that are willing to help out each other and willing to do things to, for the better of the group, and everybody, it's showing through these clinics. Everybody's signing up to get on and do them, and everybody's helping each other out. And, I know when we've had tough times, people have reached out to me, when we've had good times, people have reached out to congratulate. And I think that goes around, all the way around the brethren. And I don't know if there's any hoop coaches on here, but I coach hoop too. And, those guys might like to say it's like that, but I don't think it is. Coop, you've been around that sport a little bit this year in terms of recruiting. I think it probably helped you get Humphrey, but I don't think those guys have what we have necessarily. I'm not saying they're not close or anything, but to me, there's a lot of guys sitting in this room right now, sitting in this chat and in this association that would do anything for each other. And if we're not going to win it ourselves, then we're certainly rooting, for other guys to reach their goals and do their thing. So to me, that's what I'm the most proud of. I think in this time of, kind of controversy and this tremendous challenge that we're faced, we're stepping up and we're communicating with our kids. We're reaching out. We're trying to do what we can. We're communicating with each other. We're just setting the right example for everybody. And I just hope we continue to do that. And I hope like hell on July 7th that we can get out there and do something, with our kids. They need it. They need it. So that's what I got on that. There was a couple questions on about weightlifting and youth football, and we're at 2 hours now, and we have a couple of roundtables on those next week. So I'll kind of save those questions for next week and open it up. You guys want to turn on your cameras? Dave Turner, that's a good one too. That one was on tap at the Highlands for a while. But Chris Bessie drank it all, man. Like, out of town or two. You hate seeing those J guys come in and drinking up all the beer in the local saloon, but that's Chris. Yeah, you guys pop on your cameras. If you got questions you want to ask somebody, go ahead and fire away. I'm going to stop the recording so it won't take so long to